I was born into ceremony, into centuries folded like linen in the drawers of old palaces. I knew how to walk, how to wave, how to smile with just the right measure of distance and grace. I was taught diplomacy as a second language, silence as a third. But no one taught me what to do when your name first echoed within the holes of my heart. It did not arrive like a storm, no, it slipped in like candlelight through the cracks of a stone wall. I remember the first time I heard it, how it caught in the curve of my thoughts, how it refused to leave even as I told myself it meant nothing. Your name became a refrain in my breath, a softness that didn't belong to the world I knew. I memorized it the way one might memorize a psalm, not for duty but because something in it sounded like salvation. I was not supposed to believe in fairy tales, yet there you were, not as a prince in a story but as the quiet turning point in my own. And suddenly everything I'd ever learned felt too small to contain what was growing inside me. I began to see you in silences. In the garden's hush at dusk, in the stillness before the orchestra began. I saw you in the way the light spilled across the marble floors, in the warmth left behind on a chair after you'd gone. You weren't always present, but your absence had weight, like a book missing from a shelf. I reached for daily. I found myself scanning faces in crowds, hoping to catch your eyes, even if for a second. And when I did, it was as if the world paused, not dramatically but reverently. You looked at me like I was not someone composed of duty, of expectation, but of breath and laughter and longing. That gaze, so steady and unafraid, peeled away the layers I'd spent years perfecting. Around you, I wasn't a title or a symbol. I was simply someone waiting to be known. And you knew me, not the version that bowed and smiled, but the one that lay awake at night, wondering what it meant to be real. You became the place I returned to in my mind when the palace grew too large, when the crown felt too heavy. You were the choice I was never supposed to make, yet the one my heart had already made long before I noticed. There were letters, of course, quiet things, folded and passed with more care than any treaty. I would trace the ink with trembling fingers, imagining your hand guiding each word. You wrote as you spoke, with honesty, with care, never too much, never too little. You said what I didn't know I needed to hear, that I was more than my role, that I was someone worth seeing. You never flattered, but you revealed. You peeled back the layers gently, like someone unwrapping something breakable. In return, I wrote you into everything, not just my replies, but my days. I began to weave your name into poems I recited beneath my breath, when no one listened. I carved it in the soft corners of my journals, sometimes hidden behind initials, sometimes boldly as if to say, this is mine. You became the rhythm in my step, the thought behind every poem. My tutors spoke of war and peace, of countries and consequence, but all I could think of was you. The revolution you stirred in me, without a single demand. You did not try to save me, but you gave me the courage to rescue myself. And that, I think, is the purest kind of love. When I spoke to you, my voice became something I barely recognized, softer, less rehearsed, closer to the girl I might have been, if the world were simpler. You never asked me to speak like royalty, and so I learned to speak like a woman instead. Vulnerable, unsure, curious. You listened with a kind of patience that made me brave. I told you things I hadn't told anyone. That I sometimes felt like a museum piece, admired but untouchable. That I dreamed of escaping to somewhere anonymous, where I could be held without history between us. You didn't offer solution, you offered presence, and in a life shaped by performance, your steadiness was the first thing that felt unscripted. I could sit beside you and forget who I was supposed to be. You gave me that, a moment of ordinary in a life built on the extraordinary. You taught me that intimacy isn't always physical. Sometimes it's the silence between words, the look across a crowded room, the comfort of knowing someone sees you exactly as you are. You made me feel like a girl again, but not a child. A girl growing, learning, loving. A girl who, in secret, had already begun to write your name into every future she dared to imagine. There were rules, always rules. My life has been defined by them. What to wear, what to say, who to become. But love, I've learned, does not care for rules. It grows where it must, like ivy across stone, slow, unstoppable, quietly defiant. I tried at first to uproot it, to tuck it away behind duty. But you were persistent in your gentleness. You didn't push, but you remained. And your constancy undid me. Love, in your presence, became a sanctuary I never expected. I would sit in council meetings, nodding at discussions of foreign policy, all the while thinking of your hand brushing mine beneath the table. Last night, how such a small thing could set my world alight still astonishes me. I learned to love in glances, in coded phrases, in footsteps behind mine. It was never about grand declarations. It was about the 1,000 quiet ways you chose me, even when the world said you shouldn't. And in choosing me, you helped me choose myself. Not the girl trained to be queen, but the woman born to love, like this, fiercely, silently, truly. The palace walls have heard my laughter, my weeping, my prayers whispered into embroidered pillow. But they have never heard your name, not in the way I speak it, when I'm alone. When I say your name, it's not out of protocol. It is reverence, worship, a kind of homecoming. Each syllable tastes like freedom, like spring after a long winter. I think that's what you are to me, a season I was told I'd never know. And yet you came. You stood beside me not as a prince or a diplomat, but as a man who simply saw me. The way you look at me, I think even the paintings on the walls blush with envy. I imagine our love as a thread stitched invisibly into the tapestries, unseen by most, but they're all the same, holding everything together. I don't know what future we are allowed, what chapters lie ahead, but I know this. If I must wear a crown, I want it to be made of every moment you loved me without permission. And if I must walk this life alone, I will still carry your name like a secret song humming beneath my door. Even in my dreams, you are quieter than the rest. Never overwhelming, never demanding, but present in a way that lingers long after waking. You do not need to be loud to be unforgettable. You are the slow burn, the steady beat, the echo that doesn't fade. In my dreams, we walk by the sea, just us, no guards, no expectations. You hold my hand like it's the only thing you've ever wanted to do. And I believe you. I have known men who've kissed my hand out of formality. But you never needed to touch me to make me feel held. That is something sacred. I used to think love was something written into destinies by fate. Now I know, love is what we choose in secret, over and over, even when the world says no. I chose you the moment your name became a poem, and I've been writing it ever since, with every breath, every smile I hide from the world. You are the verse I'll never publish, the letter I'll never send, the truth behind every diplomatic smile I wear. I want you to know that I would have loved you even if I were no one. If I had been born a baker's daughter, or a girl tending sheep in the hills, I still would have loved you. Maybe then, it would have been easier. Maybe we would have walked hand in hand through markets, eaten fruit beneath the sun, and kissed without fear of camera. But even here, even with all this, the protocol, the duty, the legacy, I do not regret a second of loving you. It has been my quiet rebellion, my softest resistance, my most beautiful truth. I will not ask you to wait. I will not make promises I cannot keep. But I will love you, always. In every letter I sign, in every oath I take, there will be a part of me that still aches for the softness we once shared. You made me human. You made me whole. And if history forgets everything else, let it remember this. There was once a girl born into crowns and war rooms, who loved a boy whose name made her feel alive. And in that love, she found herself.